The 2026 Formula One Barcelona Shakedown at the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya was the first real test of the radically brand new 2026 cars. This private closed-doors event wasn't about pushing for official fastest laps, but about grinding through hundreds of kilometres of running to understand all the new systems, from the radically different active aero and the hybrid power units to electrified energy recovery systems. Reliability was the name of the game, and teams treated every lap as precious data, not headline titles. Mercedes was the standout throughout the week. The Silver Arrows completed exactly 500 laps over their 3 chosen days of running, easily most of any other team. George Russell and Kimi Antonelli split the program, and on day 3 alone, Russell ran 92 laps in the morning before Antonelli added another 91 in the afternoon, giving Mercedes a huge base of data on reliability and systems behaviour. That consistency drew praise from analysts who noted that Mercedes' approach of relentless mileage could make them early favourites for the new season. Ferrari was the team most often mentioned alongside Mercedes. Their combined total of 442 laps put them second in overall mileage, and while they began their program slightly later in the week, they made every kilometre count. Ferrari encountered no major issues during their shakedown days, and both Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc reported that the SF26 ran cleanly through its checks. On the final day, when teams across the field finally brought out soft tyres and brief qualifying style runs, Hamilton set the fastest unofficial time of the entire shakedown weekend with a 1 minute 16.348, narrowly ahead of Russell's 16.445. Leclerc was right there too, with a 1:16.653 set early in the morning of that day, suggesting that Ferrari's new package has both pace and dependability locked in early. Now, also one thing to keep in mind too, they actually have a B-spec car, which is more aggressive and faster, waiting for approval from the FIA, so Ferrari will definitely be one to look out for as we head into the 2026 season. McLaren's shakedown story was more chaotic but ultimately productive. The reigning world champions chose to skip the first 2 days of testing to focus on final car preparations. They finally hit the track midweek, only to be hampered by a fuel system issue that restricted Oscar Piastri to just 48 laps on their first day of running. Once that was resolved, however, both Piastri and last year's world champion Lando Norris, driving the number 1 on his car for the very first time, completed solid programs on their remaining days. On the final day, Norris clocked a 1:16.59, making him one of the few drivers under the 1:17 marks. The team's technical director described the week as demanding but rewarding, emphasising that the real lessons were in the details of each lap rather than outright speed. Red Bull's week was shaped by a dramatic moment early on. On day 2 in wet conditions, Red Bull driver Isaac Hadjar crashed at the final corner, damaging the car and forcing the team to wait for parts to be flown in from Milton Keynes. Despite this setback, the team continued its program once repairs were completed, with Max Verstappen returning on the final day to complete 118 laps focused on long-run data rather than fast times. By the end of the shakedown, Red Bull's new Ford-partnered power unit had logged approximately 303 laps, showing that reliability is there even as development continues. Haas also faced a mix of high and lows. The VF26 ran well early on, but Wednesday brought reliability issues that required new parts to be flown in overnight. Once fixed, the teams returned to the track in force, and on the final day, Ollie Behrman completed well over 100 laps on his own, helping Haas to a total of around 386 laps across the week. Team leadership was positive about the data collected, viewing the ability to identify and address the problems quickly as one of their biggest takeaways. Alpine continued its adaptation to the new Mercedes power unit with a consistent program. While not grabbing headlines for fastest laps, they completed approximately 349 laps and used a mix of dry and more cautious running to understand balance and thermal behaviour. Now, of course, similar to Red Bulls, their sister team Racing Bulls are also running a Ford powertrain this season. And with their brand new engine, they also posted a solid total of 319 laps, with rookies like Alfred Lindblad getting extensive track time and invaluable experience. And for the newer manufacturer entries, Barcelona was more of a learning curve. Audi's R26 suffered from early gremlins that restricted its running. Team personnel acknowledged at least several technical issues on the power unit side, and they had to work through multiple red flags before stabilising their program. They ended the week with around 240 laps, the lowest of the full-time manufacturers. Cadillac also had a limited program with 164 laps, concentrating on initial sensor validation and understanding their systems rather than pushing for speed. Both newcomers will head into Bahrain with a mountain of data to process. And last but not least, Aston Martin arrived late due to logistical and production delays, meaning Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll could only run for a short period and ended the week with only 65 laps. Their program was slim compared to the others. They still hit key targets for baseline checks before shifting focus to Bahrain testing. Meanwhile, Williams elected not to run in Barcelona at all last week, instead focus on simulator work at a virtual track test to prepare for the official preseason tests in Bahrain this month. Despite the hype around fastest laps, lap times in Barcelona are essentially meaningless in terms of performance comparison. Track conditions, tyre choices, and test programs varied so widely that no true picture of the upcoming season order can be drawn from them alone. What matters most from this week is how well teams understood the new cars as machines, how they managed thermal loads, hybrid energy deployment, and how quickly they could diagnose and fix emerging problems. Over the next 2 weeks before Bahrain preseason tests on February 11 to 13 and 18 to 20, every team will be poring over telemetry, refining setups, and preparing to take the next big step toward the 2026 season opener in Australia.